Well, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to train legs, and I said that I would do a walkthrough of how I set up my leg training for myself and how my processing behind client setups go. So we're actually going to take this to the whiteboard. So legs 101. So main muscle groups of the legs: quads, hams, glutes, calves. And then the only kind of other accessory work you probably need to do for legs is probably adductor work when we're setting it up. So you got those five, then you're kind of breaking it down into how we're going to train them, and how we're going to train them depends on your goals. So, you know, if your goal is to simply add muscle, but you don't need substantial amounts of muscle, you could probably get away with one leg session a week. So you could have quads, hamstrings, calves and glutes within one session. Whereas for me personally, competitively, I feel I need to be hitting legs twice a week. So I break mine down into a hamstring dominant session and a quad dominant session. The hamstring dominant session has no quads because my quads are strong enough, whereas my quad session has elements of hamstrings because my hamstrings are always needing a bit more hamstring. So hams get tied in with back for me, and then quads come in with pretty much everything. So it becomes quads, hams, and calves, and maybe some adductor work thrown in from there. So once that's sort of determined, how do we set up them sessions? I'm going to forget about that one because that one doesn't matter, but essentially my lower back loading exercise for hamstrings comes here. So we've got an RDL, or a glute drive, or a hip thrust. Whereas in this one, because majority of my work's going through my quads, I'm simply going to do an isolation based movement for hamstrings here. So literally my setup tends to be calves to start with, because everyone neglects calves, and trying to train calves at the end of a hard leg session is pretty much impossible. Then we move on to hamstrings to get them working, get them long, get them short, and then it'll come into the quad based movements. So at the moment, I run 3 quad movements, and then I do adductors, don't I? So it looks something like that. So calves, hams, quad, adductor. And obviously we're going to get secondary work through our hamstrings in our quad work anyway. But I'm not focusing on load for this session as much, more, if we're looking at intensity, it's more of a volume based movement in the quad session, whereas the loading based movements are quad. So when we come to this point, we've got to determine what our main driver of hypertrophy is. So the main driver of hypertrophy is failure, but we can hit failure through 2 different methods realistically. You've got intensity and you've got volume. So intensity, I mean, mechanical loading, and volume, I mean the amount of reps we do per set, or what intensity methods we build into a session. So when it comes to this, our calves today are going to be a seated calf movement. Seated calf. Our hamstring will be a lying leg curl. And then when we come on to quads, we'll start with an open chain movement, so leg extension. And the reason why I put that movement first is because it helps my knees improve over the course of the session. If I went straight into a squatting based movement and my quads weren't active, then I would get a lot of pain through there. So this is my volume based movement. So higher rep ranges taken to failure through, whether it be 20 to 25 reps, if we incorporate drop sets, whatever it might be, that'll be through the leg extension. Because try do loads and loads of volume, and loads of drop sets or force reps on, a hack squat or a leg press, the safety aspect of that is the thing which we're trying to offset the most. So then into quads, our main loading exercise for us is hacks. And then our second quad exercise, which is more of a compound based movement, will be one form of leg press. And then what we'll tend to do here is use a variety of reps, set ranges, and depending on the feeling of the day, that'll be determined on what we can do and what point I'm at the moment. So at the moment for me, I'm on like a TRT dose. So my recovery is nowhere like it was on prep, nowhere like it was in an off season when you're running, anabolics up a little bit and food's at its highest. So I'm quite sort of lower volume at the moment because lower volume is what causes me more pain, whereas the failure sets in a lower rep range that don't generate that much fatigue for me. So, and I know that. And then finish with adductor work, simply an adductor machine. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. While we're moving through it, I will talk about the setup and I'll talk about the intensity methods we're going to use through leg extension, hacks and leg press. But that's how I would set up if you're looking to get as much muscle as possible on your lower half. If it's something you struggle with, I would advise hitting them twice a week. Probably not needed to be back and hamstrings. You might decide that you might do push, pull, legs as a 4-day split. Obviously making sure recovery is the key thing. If you're doing legs twice a week, training 5 days a week might not be possible. So just making sure you're hitting every avenue, but you know, we can't improve every body part, you know, over a block, essentially, you know, because of fatigue management. So you've got to prioritize what it is you want to improve. So that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to sip on our pre-workouts and then we're going to get going. So legs, this isn't written out. So the session hasn't changed, it's just other sessions had, so I had to change it in my book. And then I like things to be in order. Bit OCD. So we're gonna start off with a calf raise, we're gonna do seated, lying ham, and we'll go from there. Good thing with setup here is you see a lot of people trying to get under it dead low. It's just, a lot of them are adjustable. Make it easy for yourself. Work smarter. So focus at the start is literally just stretching your tibialis anterior on the front of your calf and then your gastrocnemius on the back. So just moving through decent plantar and dorsiflexion. This is obviously going to also help with the rest of your leg session because one of the biggest factors in having issues with quad training is lack of ankle mobility. So starting off with calves and mobilising those ankles well, moving through the full range of motion is obviously going to improve your quad training as well. The reason why I like the seated is because it's not lower back dependent. So the standing calf raise causes me a little bit of aggravation because my calves are strong enough to do the whole stack, but I feel the pressure in my lower back. So I do prefer a seated calf. Big focus on the squeeze at the top. And sit in the stretch as well. Got to remember, you spend it all day on your calf, so you've got to put them under pressure in ways we don't get it all day, every day. So we're good with volume, but we don't like being stretched, and we don't like being flexed so they cramp. So put them in positions where you're going to feel uncomfortable, and just make you drinking enough salt so you don't cramp. I actually prefer the seated.
Because of me, my hand.
And I'm putting like 3 plates plus the whole stack on it. Right. I'm having to load it so heavy, I'm feeling it through my knees. So getting it up on occasion.
I've never had that issue.
What, hard-ons in the morning? Yeah.
Don't you? That's a normal thing. It's normal for everyone, that.
When do you normally get your hard-ons, Cal? During your training sessions at night time? Tywin Lannister is the best character in the whole of Game of Thrones. Tywin Lannister, my favourite character. He is literally the man in power.
Remember Scott Cooper coming from Lancasters?
I read all the books as well. That's the irony of it. You can't fucking read. Yeah,
well,
so you obviously misread it in the book for like 10 years. Underlying leg curls. So this is our hamstring movement for today. We do seated with posterior. So we're going to get on with this, relatively heavily loaded, and then one back off as well. So typical top set back off for the first 2 movements today. Like I said before, calves and hamstrings today, we're just doing top and back off set. We're not using any additional sets, any additional extended work, any drop sets, or anything like that. One reason, because I don't feel like we need it. And the stage I'm in now, which is a bit like a recovery phase after prep, if I hike volume too high, it'll just kill me. And then I won't recover, impact on my other sessions. Where at the moment, my goal is to keep good body composition and hold between 240, 250, which is like 180 to 110 kilo. That's enough for me. And then when we come to push again after Christmas, then I'll aim for 270, 280 when I go back on cycle. And then we'll just manage that for as long as possible before we hit bottlenecks. Come off for a bit if we need to, address blood work, and then that'll move me into next season, 2024. I remember I was teaching one afternoon in college, and I was in the 4G pitches on the Astro. One of the lads volleyed it, hit me right there, couldn't move off the floor for 20 minutes. And the kids were all like laughing at me. And it's just in that moment, it's like I had no authority in the world. I was just like worried about myself. I couldn't move. What? No, I didn't mean it. It's a football. I stretched out for a ball like that and it went done. Just knocked me sick. Good. Good control, big drive, come on. 3. This is a movement which I find people quite often chase a lot of load. And although I'm lifting heavy, I'm making sure I travel through a full range of motion and work my hamstrings. I'm not trying to jerk it up. You know, you see a lot of people sort of like jolting forward and things, trying to keep your hips stable. So pushing those glutes up will give that stability and then allow your hamstrings to lengthen and shorten properly through the whole range. You know, it's much harder movement because in a seated leg curl, we're quite fixed. We can push against it. You know, we've got that flexion at the hips or a lot more flexion at the hips. So you've got more drive. Whereas on this, you're much more isolated and you have to use your body to stabilize more than a machine. So when we look at potential for growth, you probably argue that the seated leg curl is a little bit better because you can lift heavier, you know, and more stable. And lower back doesn't become a factor. Whereas I do think it's important to have at least 2 variations within your program, whether that be seated and standing, or seated and lying, or lying and standing, whatever. Right, leg extension. So moving on to quads. First movement, as I said before, start with a leg extension. So because of the placement of where leg extension is in this session, we're not going to incorporate force reps, drop sets, things like that. Because obviously if we do that at the start of our quad base movements, our hack squat and our leg press are going to massively suffer. And then you could be like, oh yeah, but it's still failure. But I do believe the stronger our muscles are, the more load we can take, the more they'll adapt. So you've got to have it in place, ready. Because my knees haven't been amazing, my rep range on this is 15 to 20, 3 sets 15 to 20. Because of this, all I want to do is like fill them with blood, make sure they're contracting, and then load them heavily and safely on the hack. Come on. So it might look easy, but it's not. Just making sure everything travels through your quads. Hip stays fixed, back stays fixed. Good. So,
Come on, Luke, keep moving.
see, I'm not going to absolute failure on leg extensions because again, my thinking is still got a hack squat, still got a leg press, and I want to do it well. So doing too much right now on this type of movement, I'm not going to grow off fucking leg extensions, you know what I mean? If I put them towards the end, so I did hack, leg press, then leg extensions, drop sets, force reps, all that type of volume, that's going to cause, you know, progress. But for me at this point in time, I can't recover. So me doing that is just gonna, I'm not gonna grow from it, I'm just gonna be more tired. So I'll utilize that when it comes round, and I'll probably do leg extensions before the heavy stuff, but as more of an activation work, and then load it and do the drop sets, force reps and stuff after the heavy movements. So again, now just push my hips forward slightly, pull myself into the seat, so I get exactly how I want it to move and feel. One times 15 to 20. So one heavy loading set, one nice back off. As I said, no cluster sets, nothing else. Maximum rep range 20 reps, 2 sets, So top and the back off. Remember on leg press. So my setup on here, 225 plates in the heel elevation on the pad. I just get less knee pain because I'm actually generating less torque from the hip to the knee. Because it's allowing me to push forward a little bit more, creates more knee flexion for me, but less hip. So I don't get as much knee pain. So yeah, I still actually band this. Not very tight, more so because my knees again. So like in that bottom completely flexed position, my muscles really are strong enough to deal with like 5 plates, 6 plates. It's just coming out of that hole, the pain which I feel through my knee on without any sort of assistance at that bottom bit, it just stops my set. Whereas the band just gives me that pull out of the hole. And once my knees go from like that position to there, with a little bit of assistance, and my band drops off, I'm fine. So yeah, we still use a band here. So slowly working our way up. Again, 3 or 4 reps up to my max load today, which is going to probably be just above 5 plates. So last we got 5 plates for 11, so went outside my rep range. So I'm going to try 5.5 today, knee permitting, for 6 reps, and just start there. Because literally we've had this machine in 3 or 4 weeks. I've been playing on it and just working out what I can and can't do. Feel my lower back come into this a little bit towards the end. I felt it a couple of weeks ago, and it was what was fucking my set. So again, just a little bit more support around the midsection when the weight's a bit, let's say a bit heavy. It's not that fucking heavy. I'm sure people are lifting heavier. Yes. Oh, nice. 2. 3. Come on, all day loop. 4. Easy. 5. Strong. Come on. And 6. Yes. Drive. Yes. Strong. Good set. Strong now, mate. Yep. Good. Rock that. 10 off. Take 10 off. Don't worry, mate. Don't worry. Can't all be strong. So yeah, hack's done. On some leg press. So onto the second bigger base movement. In regards to sort of like what we're looking for on this is just as max through the quads now as possible, because we can isolate it a little bit better than a hack. There's less things coming into play. You know, as I did on my top set, I put my belt on. So we're fixed in the seat. Just aiming to drive as much sort of power through the quads and not allowing any other muscles to contribute. So you'll see that in my setup, how low I place my feet, how I lean into it, and again, just not chasing load, just making it heavy for my quads, not heavy for my legs. You know, I can push 10, 11 plates if I wanted to, a wide stance, feet higher, generate power through my glutes, quads and hamstrings, but that isn't the goal. The goal is to get the quads to respond. Get in your bed. Yeah. Man down. That was me last year, wasn't it? Not up to that body weight yet where I feel it. Still fit. CrossFitter. 6. Yes. 9. Drive. I really just wanted to match what I did last week on leg press, which I did. So again, not excessively trying to chase load or reps each week at the moment, being off and not eating that much. So a nice controlled, deep 8 plates for 10 reps. So Toby's quite deep into an off season now. He's like 12 weeks, 14 weeks. So he's obviously having little issues with body weight going up quite quickly. And typically when that happens, we retain more water. And the body just doesn't adapt as quick to it. So at the moment his lower back's pumping out quite quickly because his body weight's highest it's been for ever probably. But in order for us to make the progress we want to make before he competes next year, is we have to bring those legs up. Upper body wise, not many weaknesses for what we're trying to show as like a novice competitor. He's going to be relatively light, so he's going to be, you know, we've got to be shredded, but we just got to bring up those hamstrings and quads to match his upper body frame. So another thing we've just got to, when we hit this bottleneck, which is starting to appear now with his body weight, we've just got to be aware of it and try and work around things. So again today, 4 sets on lower back loading, movements for quads. Whereas I won't make him do Bulgarians because it'll just cripple him. Whereas at this moment in time, I can still deal with Bulgarian. So it's just about sort of management of the session. Hello, mate.
We'll have a good set now, Luke.
Baby, this is not the time.
You can't. Doesn't work like that, Bo. Wrong exercise.
It's just a good luck hug. Where's your ball? Go on. Good luck kiss.
Come on, Luke, keep moving. Come on, Luke.
Up.
Yes. Come on, keep moving, keep moving. Come on.
Come on, Carl. 4.
4. And again, keep moving.
5. Come on, 5 now, let's
5.
go.
1.
1.
And again.
2.
2. Good.
3. Come on, now we're in it. Let's go.
Come on,
2
2
more.
more, 2 more. Keep,
Come on, work for it.
Keep it going.
5.
1.
And again.
And 1.
Yes. That's it. All the hard work's done. As I said earlier, not trying to kill it at the moment. I'm not pushing food, I'm not pushing drugs in the slightest. I'm on TRT. So it's more about maintaining tissue from a rebound and filling out. So when I finish with adductors, and then that's a very, very lucrative leg session done. The attention you require. Good boy. Good boy. Can I do your set now? Come on. So I used to start with adductors, but I was just overloading it. And even now, it's like I could chase plates on there if I want, but there is literally next to no point. They're not designed to be big, your adductors. They need to be there. I'm relatively large from behind, but they just need fucking controlling and more reps. And I guarantee these machines aren't designed to put 20s on. Normally, when I was rebounding after the show, I had an extra set of Bulgarians in there. But now, because I've come off cycle, I was only running 300 test, 300 primo on my rebound, but now I'm off. It's like, I'm just not going to recover. And I noticed that last week, even with this session. So I was like, well, just remove an exercise the other week. And if I need to remove any more, I can do. I'll remove, what would I remove next? I'll probably remove a loaded set of leg press and Callum.
Fuck off. Ah!
Good. So that really is our typical leg session every Friday. And then on a Tuesday, I do posterior. Well, back and hamstrings. It is posterior, but I hate calling it posterior. So back and hamstrings, start hamstrings, RDL, or glute drive on a weekly rotation. So we predominantly hit more glutes one week, more hamstrings the next, with then either a seated leg curl afterwards or a hip extension, and just rotate them too. Just keep it fresh as well. It's nice to do a little bit and my RDL's only ever progressed so much in an off season. You know, the maximum I've got to is like 260, pulling it for 5 or 6. I mean, any more than that, it just destroys me. So slowing that progress down back towards there by rotating week to week will keep me a little bit fresher out the gates rather than dreading an RDL every week.
Like, for example, originally I used to be on upper-lower split.
Yeah.
Why would you say someone should do upper-lower split then?
I think
Like
towards
2 lowers?
well, I feel like at the beginning of training, say if you're like between the years of 1 and 3 years training, I feel like you'll get most progress from upper and lower.
Yeah, because you don't really know what intensity really is, do you, at that
No,
point?
and no one puts it all into one leg session, I find.
Yeah.
When you are that level, so having it more frequent is going to be more progressive. But also, I'm not having to put too much volume within one session, so you're not too sore.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're recovering quite quickly. And then from there, from a 4-day week like that, I tend to then move it to a 4-day week, like a bro split sort of split.
Yeah.
And then when you get a bit more advanced and you can handle what failure is and things like that, you can move to a more 4 to 5 day split, which prioritizes muscle groups again. You know, you doing hamstrings before back, and a newbie wouldn't be able to generate the intensity through the back session.
Yeah.
You know, they wouldn't be able to find it after doing the intensity through the hamstrings. Whereas the more experienced you are, the more you'll be able to like find that intensity isn't shouting at a bar, intensity isn't like, you know, screaming and sweating from your eyeballs. It's actually just being intense within the sets.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, my sets are very calm and composed, but the intensity is clearly there.
Yeah.
You know, it's just people's understanding
Of what
over
intensity
time,
really
of what
is,
it-
yeah.
and it takes time.
You're always getting better as well, really, aren't you?
Yeah, always. Awesome. Right.